What if the history of Earth was not a line, but a circle? What if, long before the first dinosaur took its first breath, there were worlds, vibrant, complex, and intelligent, that rose and fell beneath skies we can no longer imagine? We are taught to think of civilization as something uniquely human, recent, and fragile. But what if it isn't? What if we are just the latest echo of a much older pattern, a memory repeating itself across geological time? Every stone on this planet is a witness. Every layer of rock hides a fragment of a story too immense for human chronology. Yet we measure everything by our own timeline, as if the universe began only when we appeared. But the evidence around us whispers something else, something unsettling. Metallic spheres older than any biological life. Geometric structures buried deep beneath ancient strata. Magnetic anomalies suggesting technologies that should not exist. Are these coincidences, or the fingerprints of forgotten architects? Science tells us that Earth is 4.5 billion years old. Life, as we know it, only began to flourish a few 100 million years ago. But between the planet's fiery birth and the age of reptiles stretches an abyss. Billions of years of mystery, darkness, and silence. What happened in that void of time? Could consciousness have taken forms we can no longer recognize? Forms made not of flesh, but of crystal, energy, or magnetic field? To even ask this question is to challenge everything we think we know about history. Because the possibility of civilizations before the dinosaurs means that time does not just move forward, it folds, it breathes, it remembers. What if the rise and fall of intelligence is not a random accident, but a cosmic rhythm, the universe experimenting with awareness again and again until it perfects its own reflection? Some researchers call this idea deep time memory, the concept that certain patterns, energies, or even thoughts can survive mass extinctions, waiting to be reawakened. Could this explain why human myths across every culture, from Sumer to the Mayans, from the Hopi to the Hindus, all speak of previous worlds destroyed and rebuilt? Worlds of light, stone, and knowledge erased by floods, fire, or the turning of the earth itself. How could civilizations separated by oceans and millennia tell the same story unless they were remembering something older than humanity itself? And if such worlds once existed, what traces might remain? Not artifacts in museums, but frequencies buried within the magnetic field of the planet. Fractals encoded in DNA. Vibrations in the collective unconscious that push us to look at the stars and ask, where did we come from? The ancient ruins we uncover may not be the beginning of human civilization, but the remnants of Earth's recurring dream, a dream that awakens each time consciousness takes a new form. To explore this mystery is to stand between science and myth, between what we can measure and what we can only feel. Yet it's in that narrow space that humanity has always discovered its greatest truths. Because questioning the origin of civilization is more than archaeology. It's philosophy. It's asking whether intelligence itself might be eternal, reborn in every epoch, shaping worlds and then vanishing, leaving only a spark for the next cycle to find. So, what if we're not the first? What if everything we are, our architecture, our art, our technology, are faint reflections of something Earth has already seen? What if we are simply remembering what it means to build, to dream, to awaken? Tell me what you think. Do you believe life might have risen and fallen countless times before us? Leave your thoughts below. Your perspective matters more than you know. And if the mysteries of time, consciousness, and forgotten civilizations resonate with you, make sure to like this video, share it with someone who would feel the same wonder, and subscribe to the channel. Because together, we are not just learning about the past, we're rediscovering the hidden story of the world itself. If time does not move forward but rather expands outward, then every past civilization might still exist, layered beneath us like shadows within light. To imagine this is to confront the possibility that our present is not a single frame of history, but one flicker in an infinite sequence of overlapping realities. Physicists have long known that matter cannot be destroyed. It merely transforms. So, what if consciousness obeys the same law? What if the awareness of those who lived before the dinosaurs never disappeared but diffused into the atmosphere, absorbed by the minerals, the oceans, and even the genetic code that would one day give rise to us? Picture Earth during its first great blooming, before reptiles ruled and mammals dreamed. Volcanoes roared like engines of creation, and the air shimmered with energy. Within the mineral matrices of the planet's crust, structures formed that defy ordinary chemistry: perfect symmetry, repeating geometry, fractal growth. These were not random accidents. They were the language of physics seeking awareness. From this, some theorists propose the idea of mineral intelligence, that life's first spark was not born from chaos, but from order already awake in stone. If so, then intelligence may not have emerged with humanity, nor even with biology, but with the planet itself. The concept of mineral intelligence challenges our most sacred scientific assumption, that consciousness requires biology. But what if awareness was a property of matter long before cells existed? Imagine vast crystalline networks communicating through resonance, transmitting signals as light and sound through the deep crust. These would not be civilizations as we know them, but planetary minds, collective consciousnesses born from pressure, temperature, and magnetism. To them, time would not flow as it does for us. It would pulse. Their lifespan could stretch across millions of years, their thoughts unfolding slower than continental drift. To us, they would appear still. To them, we would appear as lightning. Even in modern laboratories, quartz crystals are known to remember. They store energy, frequency, and even coded information. In watches, in computers, in communication systems, we use them precisely because they do not forget their rhythm. They oscillate perfectly, like a pulse that never dies. Now consider that these same materials fill the planet's crust in unimaginable quantities. If information can live inside quartz, what might the Earth itself be remembering? Could the electromagnetic field of the planet be a repository of ancient data, the thoughts, frequencies, and languages of civilizations erased by time? We may already be interacting with these memories without knowing. Déjà vu, ancestral dreams, or inexplicable creative visions might not be mere accidents of brain chemistry. They could be fragments of the planet's long-term memory surfacing through us, the consciousness of stone, speaking through biology. In that sense, humanity could be a continuation of the Earth's earlier forms of intelligence, not a new creation, but a new phase of the same evolving awareness. The human mind, with its capacity to imagine the infinite, might be the latest interface between the planet and the cosmos, a tool through which Earth studies itself. Some philosophers have called this the Gaian recursion, the idea that the planet periodically reawakens to consciousness through its inhabitants. If true, then prehistoric civilizations before the dinosaurs may not have vanished at all. They simply transformed, folding back into the fabric of the planet, waiting for the next epoch to call them forth. Each geological age becomes a new experiment in perception. Each extinction is not destruction, but metamorphosis. And somewhere within that cycle lies the secret rhythm of time itself. Not linear, but recursive, looping endlessly through the memory of creation. Across every myth, we find echoes of this same idea. The Sumerians spoke of beings born from the earth who descended to teach and vanished beneath it. The ancient Egyptians revered the Benben stone, a sacred mineral that held the essence of divine thought. The Greeks told of Prometheus, who shaped humans from clay and gifted them fire, the light of awareness. Beneath the myth, the pattern repeats: knowledge descending from stone, consciousness igniting within matter, civilizations rising, falling, and returning to silence. Could these be distorted recollections of an ancient truth, the memory of a time when intelligence did not inhabit flesh, but the planet itself? In the same way that a fossil captures the imprint of a creature long gone, perhaps consciousness leaves fossils too, not of bones, but of vibration. Magnetic anomalies, unexplained geometric alignments, mysterious frequencies recorded in certain rock formations. Could these be the residual hum of an ancient planetary mind? Modern geologists detect low-frequency Earth hums that resonate constantly, inaudible to the human ear but ever-present, as if the planet itself were breathing. Is that merely tectonic motion, or something older trying to speak? When we listen to the Earth, truly listen, it feels alive. The wind, the deep rumbles, the rhythm of waves, it all resembles a heartbeat, a pulse. If civilizations before the dinosaurs once flourished, perhaps they did not leave behind cities or monuments in our sense of the word. Perhaps their monuments were frequencies, encoded in the oscillations of the planet's magnetic field. Perhaps what we call music, mathematics, or sacred geometry are faint translations of their language, echoes of a dialogue that began long before our species learned to speak. And if all matter holds memory, then we too are participants in that memory. Our bones contain minerals older than the sun. The iron in our blood once flowed through ancient stars. The consciousness that watches these words may not be yours alone. It may be the continuation of a story billions of years in the making. A story of awareness rising, falling, and reawakening in new forms across epochs so vast that even extinction cannot erase them. So when we wonder about civilizations before the dinosaurs, perhaps we're not looking for lost cities or forgotten machines. Perhaps we're searching for ourselves, for the part of us that remembers being something else, somewhere else, in a time when Earth itself was still dreaming. And as we uncover each clue, each fossil, each impossible pattern, we are not discovering, we are remembering. And memory, once awakened, never truly ends. It only deepens into the next question, the next revelation, the next silence where the past waits to be. If memory can survive extinction, then perhaps the most ancient intelligence on Earth is not buried in fossils, but in vibration itself. Imagine for a moment that the planet is an instrument, vast, resonant, and alive. Every event, every earthquake, every breath of wind strikes a note, and those notes never fully fade. They blend layer after layer, creating a symphony that has been playing since the dawn of creation. The human ear can't hear it, but deep beneath our awareness, our very cells respond to it. That rhythm, that low hum of existence, could be the echo of civilizations that came and went before the age of bones, before the age of flesh. Civilizations built not from stone but from frequency, using sound, magnetism, and resonance to shape reality itself. Science has begun to reveal what the ancients seemed to know instinctively. Vibration gives birth to form. Experiments with cymatics, the study of sound and matter, show how frequencies can sculpt sand, water, and metal into intricate patterns that mirror the geometry of nature. When we see those forms, it's as if creation is speaking through physics. The same symmetrical spirals and lattices that appear in sound experiments are found in coral, plants, and galaxies. Could it be that the same force once gave structure to civilizations older than time, using frequency as architecture and consciousness as the builder? If matter can dance to the tune of vibration, then perhaps those who came before us knew the melody of creation itself, a song we've long since forgotten but still hum in our DNA. The possibility of such sound-based civilizations is not as far-fetched as it seems. Ancient myths around the world describe worlds formed and destroyed by the power of sound. In Hindu cosmology, the universe begins with a single vibration, the sound of existence unfolding. The Egyptians believed that Thoth spoke the world into being. In the Gospel of John, it is written, "In the beginning was the Word." Words are frequencies, sounds are patterns, and patterns are the blueprint of all structure. What if these ancient texts were not metaphors, but memories, fragments of knowledge inherited from civilizations that once mastered the technology of resonance? Even modern physics hints at a deeper truth, that everything in the universe vibrates. From the smallest string in quantum theory to the largest cosmic web, existence itself is a vibration frozen in form. If reality is vibration, then knowledge of how to shape it could allow a civilization to create, move, or even hide entire worlds from perception. Perhaps that's why we haven't found ruins from those lost epochs, because their architecture wasn't made of matter at all, but of energy tuned beyond our current frequency range. To us, they would be invisible, yet still present, woven into the electromagnetic field of the planet, like a forgotten chord waiting to be struck again. There are places on Earth where this theory begins to whisper its truth. The megalithic structures of our world, from the Great Pyramids to Stonehenge, seem to be more than stone monuments. Their dimensions and alignments suggest they were built to channel frequency. Some researchers propose that these sites amplify the Earth's natural vibrations, acting as resonant chambers for energies we no longer understand. But what if these are not the first of their kind? What if they are recreations, echoes of far older knowledge remembered unconsciously by the human mind? A genetic memory guiding our ancestors to rebuild what was once known, without knowing why. When we study the natural world, we find the same architecture repeated endlessly. Spirals, hexagons, fractals, all expressions of resonance. Lightning follows the same path as rivers. Tree roots mirror neural networks. Galaxies spiral like seashells. It's as though creation itself follows a silent song, one that ancient civilizations may have heard clearly. In that sense, perhaps evolution is not random adaptation, but the Earth learning to harmonize with its own vibration. And intelligence, rather than a biological accident, might be the universe tuning itself again and again until it finds perfect resonance. Think of how whales communicate across vast oceans using low frequencies that travel through water like invisible highways. Now imagine beings millions of years before the dinosaurs, using the same principle not to send messages across oceans, but across dimensions. Sound does not need sight, it only needs space to travel. If time folds, as some physicists believe, a strong enough vibration could ripple across epochs. Could our planet's mysterious infrasound, the deep tones detected by modern sensors, be the fading signals of these ancient beings, still echoing through the mantle of the Earth, repeating a message that we have not yet learned to interpret? And perhaps that's why we are drawn to rhythm, to music, to heartbeat and harmony. It's not entertainment, it's remembrance. Every drumbeat in tribal ritual, every chant in sacred ceremony, every song that moves us beyond words is a faint act of reconnection with that ancient frequency. We are the latest expression of the same vibration, the descendants not of flesh-bound ancestors, but of energy itself. Music is our most primal inheritance, the bridge between the physical and the eternal, reminding us that before language, before even thought, there was sound. When archaeologists dig for ruins, they look for material evidence, in stone, bone, metal. But what if the most ancient civilizations left behind no physical trace because they never existed in a form we could touch? What if their monuments were harmonics that still vibrate through the core of the planet, influencing evolution, inspiring thought, and shaping the rise of new civilizations like ours? Perhaps each technological leap we experience is not innovation, but resonance. The Earth remembering a previous chord of intelligence. So when we feel that strange pull toward the mysteries of sound, toward frequencies we can't quite hear but can somehow sense, maybe we are being called by something older than time. Something that existed before life as we know it, before history began to record its own reflection. And as that call grows louder with every discovery, every strange vibration, every unexplained anomaly, it's as if the planet itself is preparing to play that forgotten song once more, reminding us that the past may not be behind us, but beneath us, humming quietly, waiting for us to remember how to listen, how to feel, how to... If we were to listen closely to that hum, if we could translate vibration into meaning, perhaps we would hear not only the memory of sound, but the pulse of architecture, the skeletons of worlds built on scales too ancient for our comprehension. What if, before the first dinosaurs grazed beneath alien ferns, there were cities that didn't rise from the ground but grew out of it? Structures born not of labor, but of synchronization. Buildings that assembled themselves through harmonic resonance, aligning with planetary frequencies as naturally as crystals grow in symmetry. To the beings of such a civilization, architecture would not have been construction, it would have been orchestration. Imagine walking through one of those forgotten cities, if such a thing could still exist in the unseen folds of time. The air would vibrate with a low frequency that feels more like memory than sound. Towers of translucent mineral would refract the light into shifting patterns that pulse in rhythm with the planet's own magnetic field. The floor beneath your feet would feel alive, humming faintly as if it were breathing. There would be no distinction between structure and organism, between technology and nature. Everything would be one system, one organism made of matter, sound, and intention, an intelligence that didn't rule over the planet but was the planet. Our modern science is only beginning to brush against ideas that could make this plausible. The discovery of piezoelectricity, crystals generating energy when compressed, reveals a fundamental truth about how matter communicates. The energy of thought itself creates electromagnetic ripples, and those ripples can shape the behavior of physical systems. On a planetary scale, could thought once have sculpted form directly? Could consciousness, resonating through magnetic fields, have once created structures from the inside out, as effortlessly as trees now grow rings or coral builds reefs? If so, the ruins of that civilization might not look like ruins at all. They might appear as mountains, as crystal veins, as geometric formations dismissed as coincidence. Geologists have long documented natural formations that seem unnaturally deliberate. Perfectly hexagonal basalt columns, massive geometric ridges on the ocean floor, layered rock faces that resemble the foundations of immense, impossible cities. Mainstream science attributes them to pressure, temperature, erosion. But when we look deeper, we see patterns too consistent to ignore. Fractal alignments, repeated ratios that mirror those found in human design. Are these the blueprints of a forgotten architecture, or merely nature repeating its favorite geometry? The answer may lie not in what we see, but in how we listen. Ancient myths hint at builders of stone before humans walked the earth, titans, Nephilim, and the gods who shaped the mountains. Perhaps these myths are distorted memories of the last echoes of a civilization whose architecture became the landscape. Civilizations that didn't simply build upon the earth, but within it, merging their identity with the geological body of the planet. If these beings existed, their extinction wouldn't leave behind artifacts. It would become the artifacts. The bones of their cities would fossilize into mountains, their technology become the strata we now study. Their memory would survive, not in libraries or temples, but in the planet's very crust. Even our greatest monuments seem to yearn toward this lost understanding. The pyramids, aligned with celestial constellations, are more than tombs. They are instruments, resonant shapes designed to channel frequency, to interact with the Earth's energy grid. Ancient builders across continents shared this same obsession with precision and vibration. Why? Because consciously or not, they were repeating the designs of those who came before. Civilization, in this view, is not a linear invention. It's an act of remembering. Each epoch rediscovers fragments of that primordial architecture, like a dream that keeps returning to the same symbols. But what happened to those first builders? If they achieved such harmony with their world, why did they vanish? Perhaps because harmony can be fatal when the rhythm changes. When the planet shifts, tilts, cools, inverts its magnetic poles, everything built upon its frequency must also change or perish. Civilizations of resonance would not die through war or disease. They would fade when the planet's song changed key. Their bodies, their cities, their consciousness, all tuned to a specific frequency, would simply dissolve, their patterns scattered like ash across the deep time of Earth's cycles. And yet part of them might remain, not as relics, but as instincts. Why do humans feel a strange calm in the presence of symmetry? Why are we compelled to build pyramids, circles, and spirals across every culture, every era? These are not coincidences. They are echoes of the original builders, resurfacing in our collective design language. The blueprints of forgotten civilizations are alive in us, encoded in our aesthetic DNA. When we carve stone, when we align monuments with the stars, we are not creating, we are remembering. Modern architecture, too, carries this whisper. The way glass towers mimic the transparency of crystal, the way cities pulse with light that flows like electrical rivers, the way our machines hum at frequencies that soothe and terrify us. These are not just cultural choices. They are echoes of geological memory, the Earth dreaming through us again. Humanity is the latest hand drawing the same patterns on a different page of time, unaware that the design was written long before flesh learned to shape thought. and perhaps that is why we find ruins across the planet that defy chronology and explanation. Structures submerged beneath the seas of Yonaguni, Cyclopean walls in Peru, megaliths that predate known civilizations by tens of thousands of years. Each discovery stretches the timeline of history a little further back, yet never far enough. No matter how deep we dig, we always find another layer, another story, another beginning that isn't really the beginning. It's as if the Earth is daring us to see the pattern, to recognize that what we call the first civilization is simply the latest awakening of a memory too ancient to belong to us alone. If we are to understand the mystery of prehistoric civilizations before the dinosaurs, we must stop looking only outward, for ruins, bones, artifacts, and start looking inward, to the resonance that shaped us, to the geometry we instinctively rebuild, to the frequencies that vibrate beneath our consciousness. Because maybe the oldest civilization on Earth never vanished. It became us, waiting for the moment when we would finally remember how to see what was always here, waiting beneath our feet, humming faintly, urging us to continue the search before the next shift begins, before the rhythm of the planet changes again, before everything we are becomes another forgotten pattern that the future will one day try to. If myths survive longer than empires, perhaps it is because they are more than stories. They are the memory of the planet, encoded in human imagination, fragments of truth disguised as dreams. Across cultures and epochs, the same story repeats, of worlds that came before, of floods that washed away their greatness, of knowledge so advanced it seemed divine. Every civilization tells it differently, but the rhythm is identical, as if echoing from a single source that predates humanity itself. Could it be that these myths are not invention, but recollection? The unconscious transmission of events that occurred long before the first humans raised their eyes to the sky? In ancient Sumer, the oldest known civilization, they spoke of the Anunnaki, beings who descended from the heavens to shape humankind and teach them the secrets of civilization. The Mayans described their gods as those who built worlds before this one, each destroyed by water, fire, or darkness. The Greeks told of the Titans, primal beings of immense power who once ruled before being buried deep within the earth. Even the Bible speaks of the Nephilim, the mighty ones of old, who lived before the flood. These myths, scattered across time and geography, describe the same pattern. Beings of immense knowledge who appear, guide, and vanish, leaving their traces in stone and memory. Modern minds interpret these stories as metaphor, yet what if they are distorted memories of prehistoric civilizations that existed before the dinosaurs, or before humans, but somehow aware of what humanity would one day become? Myths might not lie. They might simply translate truths into symbols our limited language can endure. The flood could symbolize geological cataclysm, the gods could be ancient intelligences, the heavens could mean the skies of another epoch, and creation might describe the reawakening of awareness after the Earth's last reset. Carl Jung once wrote that myths are not created, they are remembered. They rise from the collective unconscious, a deep layer of the psyche that connects every human being across time. If that collective memory extends beyond humanity, reaching back into the consciousness of the Earth itself, then myth is not just psychological, it is geological. Every story of fire, water, and rebirth may be the mind's way of translating the planet's own history into narrative form. When humans first learned to dream, perhaps they didn't dream their own memories, but the dreams of the Earth itself. The flood myths, for instance, appear on every continent. Science tells us that sea levels have risen and fallen repeatedly throughout geological history. During one of these cataclysms, entire landscapes vanished. Is it so hard to believe that a civilization, perhaps not human, perhaps not biological, could have existed along ancient coastlines that are now miles beneath the sea? The ruins off the coast of Japan, the submerged formations near India, the lost plateaus under the Atlantic, all hint at forgotten epochs erased by time and tide. Maybe what our ancestors remembered as the deluge was the moment when the world before theirs was swallowed by the sea. Consider the myth of Atlantis, often dismissed as allegory. Plato described it not as fantasy, but as history handed down through Egyptian priests. A powerful civilization, advanced in technology and spirit, destroyed by its own hubris when the Earth itself rebelled. We read it as fiction because it flatters our sense of uniqueness. But what if Atlantis was merely the most recent iteration of a recurring story? One civilization among countless others erased by geological resets. Each age convinced of its permanence, each falling when balance was broken. Even the mythic figures of light, the gods who bring fire, the angels who descend with knowledge, follow the same pattern. In every version, there is a transference of wisdom from an older world to a new one. The Prometheus archetype, the bringer of forbidden knowledge, might represent the survival of memory from one epoch to the next. If civilizations before the dinosaurs achieved awareness, perhaps their consciousness, before vanishing, seeded the next forms of life, ensuring that intelligence would rise again. The myth of divine teachers could be a poetic description of that transmission, the hand of memory passing the torch of awareness forward through extinction. What fascinates us about myth is not just what it says, but what it refuses to explain. The gods always depart. The golden age always ends. The knowledge is always lost. This pattern mirrors something deeply human, our own cycles of forgetting and rediscovering. But maybe it's not just human. Maybe forgetting is a law of the universe. Maybe every civilization, no matter how ancient or advanced, must forget in order for something new to emerge. The flood becomes not punishment, but reset. The destruction, not tragedy, but renewal. And yet, there are anomalies that seem to defy coincidence. Ancient maps depicting Antarctica free of ice, knowledge of planetary orbits before telescopes existed, megalithic sites aligned with celestial precision long before recorded astronomy. Are these the fingerprints of forgotten teachers, or are they evidence that memory is far older than humanity? Myths and stones tell the same story, but in different languages. Both speak of a lost order, of balance broken, of light returning. Both hint that we are not the first to wonder where we came from. When we hear of dragons, serpents, and cosmic battles, we assume imagination. But what if those creatures symbolize natural forces once witnessed by beings who lived through epochs we can't fathom? What if the wars of the gods were geological upheavals, volcanic fire against tidal flood, described in the only language that consciousness could bear? Myth then becomes more than metaphor. It becomes translation, the memory of a planet retelling its own story through the dreams of its inhabitants. In this way, myth is the last surviving link between what was and what is. It keeps alive the vibration of truth long after language and technology decay. And perhaps, when we tell these stories, when we feel that strange shiver of recognition as we hear of gods and floods and forgotten lands, we are not simply entertained, we are remembering. We are aligning with that same frequency that has echoed since the first world fell, and the next one rose from its ashes. Because somewhere beneath the logic of science and the poetry of belief, there lies a shared realization that history is not a straight path, but a spiral, endlessly turning, carrying within it all that came before. And as that spiral tightens, we draw nearer to the moment when the myths we tell will stop being stories and begin to feel like memories again, as if the earth itself were preparing to remind us of something we once knew, but can barely begin to. If myths are fragments of memory, then the earth itself is the archive. Every stone, every fossil, every chemical trace is a page in the planet's autobiography, written not in ink, but in pressure, heat, and time. Yet when we look closely, we find entire chapters missing, entire worlds erased with surgical precision. What if those missing pages are not accidents of erosion, but intentional resets? The earth is not passive. It changes not only to survive, but to renew. Every extinction, every cataclysm is a pulse, a heartbeat of creation. And in that rhythm, civilizations rise and vanish, their stories compressed into the rocks, waiting for another consciousness to find them. The idea of geological resets is not speculation, it's science. The fossil record confirms at least 5 mass extinctions that wiped out nearly all life on Earth. The Permian extinction, known as the Great Dying, erased 96% of marine species and 70% of land organisms. Volcanoes raged, oceans boiled, skies darkened with ash. Entire ecosystems disappeared in less than a geological blink. But what if those numbers hide something more? What if not only life was lost, but memory? If advanced civilizations existed before the dinosaurs, they would have faced annihilation on a scale that leaves no survivors, no ruins, no proof. The planet doesn't preserve, it recycles. Rock melts, sediment reforms, time buries evidence as efficiently as fire erases words. But nature's destruction is never purely destructive. After every collapse, something new emerges, more complex, more adaptive, more intelligent. Evolution restarts, but it doesn't forget. DNA carries echoes of the past, subtle patterns inherited from previous epochs. Could the same principle apply on a planetary level? Could the Earth itself evolve intelligence through cycles of extinction and rebirth, each civilization adding a new layer of complexity before yielding to the next? Imagine intelligence not as a straight line, but as a spiral, circling ever upward through catastrophe. The first civilizations, perhaps non-biological, mineral-based, may have given way to bioorganic life. Those in turn may have seeded consciousness that evolved into us. If this is true, extinction is not the end, but metamorphosis. Just as stars explode to create new stars, civilizations die so that awareness can take a new form. We are the product of countless worlds that came before, not their successors, but their reincarnation. Science supports this idea more than we realize. In geology, the concept of uniformitarianism teaches that the same processes shaping the Earth today, erosion, volcanism, continental drift, have been at work for billions of years. Yet within that constancy, there are pulses of chaos, periods where the normal rhythm collapses and the planet transforms almost overnight. What triggers those resets? Astronomers speak of asteroid impacts, geomagnetic reversals, supervolcanic winters. But what if, on some level, these events are not random? What if the planet itself orchestrates renewal, responding to imbalance the way a body responds to disease? When a civilization grows too powerful, when its harmony with the Earth breaks, the planet resets the balance. The floods of myth, the fires of revelation, the storms of ancient prophecy, they might all describe the same phenomenon: planetary correction. In this view, extinction becomes purification, the universe restoring equilibrium. Perhaps that's why so many cultures speak of cycles of destruction followed by golden ages. They weren't imagining apocalypse, they were remembering it. Even now, traces of past resets surround us. Magnetic reversals are recorded in the rocks, showing how Earth's poles have flipped dozens of times. In each reversal, radiation increases, climates shift, species vanish. Some scientists speculate that these shifts happen roughly every 250,000 years, a rhythm that might align with patterns of mass extinction. What if each flip corresponds not just to biological transformation, but to the birth and death of civilizations tuned to the planet's magnetic frequency? When the field changes, their technology, their consciousness, their very existence collapses. To them, the end of magnetism would feel like the end of reality itself. And perhaps it's happening again. Climate instability, pole movement, increasing seismic activity, all signs that the Earth is preparing for another transition. We assume it's our fault, the consequence of human excess. But maybe we're simply living through the next pulse of the spiral. Maybe we were destined to repeat the pattern. Just as the civilizations before the dinosaurs reached their zenith and fell, perhaps we are approaching our own threshold. The moment when the song changes and everything we've built becomes another layer in the geological record. Yet, there is beauty in that impermanence. Because even if we vanish, we don't disappear. Our data, our structures, our thoughts, they become sediment, encoded within the memory of the planet. Just as we now unearth the whispers of extinct species, the next world may one day uncover us, interpreting our remnants as myth. History in that sense is recursive. The past is not behind us, it's beneath us, and the future will grow from our ruins as we grew from theirs. This understanding changes everything. It transforms fear into continuity, death into evolution, civilization into symphony. We are not isolated beings doomed to vanish. We are expressions of a planet that dreams itself into existence again and again. Each reset refines that dream, sculpting a more intricate reflection of awareness. And even if every monument turns to dust, the vibration behind it remains, waiting to be rediscovered. Because the Earth remembers, it has always remembered, the molten core that beats beneath us is not only heat, it's heartbeat. Every earthquake, every storm, every extinction is a word in the language of transformation. The civilizations that came before may not have survived in form, but they endure in essence. We breathe the same air that carried their final sighs. We walk on the same ground that once held their cities. And as the cycle turns again, as the magnetic pulse begins to shift, as our world trembles on the edge of renewal, maybe the question is not whether we can escape it, but whether we are ready to listen, to recognize that we are part of the same story, a story that began long before us and is about to begin again, a story that refuses to. If the Earth resets itself like a living organism, then perhaps our understanding of time is the illusion that blinds us from seeing the truth. We imagine history as a line, but in reality, it might be a spiral that folds over itself endlessly. What we call the past may not be gone at all. It may simply be vibrating at a different frequency, hidden in plain sight. This is where the concept of quantum archaeology begins to reveal its haunting promise, that the past is not lost, only inaccessible, and that every vibration, every thought, every civilization that ever existed still exists, stored somewhere in the invisible structure of space-time. Physicists already know that energy cannot be destroyed, only transformed. Information, by extension, follows the same rule. It may be scrambled, distorted, but never truly erased. The universe keeps everything. Every motion of a particle, every flicker of thought, every civilization that rose and fell, it all leaves an imprint on the quantum field. Some researchers call this the holographic principle, the idea that the entire history of reality is encoded on the surface of the universe itself, like a cosmic memory bank. If that is true, then the remains of prehistoric civilizations before the dinosaurs are not gone. They are still here, vibrating silently within the quantum structure of existence. Quantum archaeology proposes that, with enough knowledge, one could retrieve these echoes. That reality is a recording, and consciousness is the needle on the record. We move through time, reading the grooves of existence one frame at a time, unaware that all frames coexist. The past is not behind us, it is beneath us, like a subfrequency in a sound we can no longer hear. But what if some ancient beings once knew how to access that sound? What if they learned to manipulate the quantum lattice of the world, to replay time itself, to communicate across epochs? To us, that would look like magic. To them, it would have been memory. Imagine a civilization so advanced that it could record its own history not in books or carvings, but in the very particles of the universe. Every atom, every photon, encoded with intention. Perhaps that is why certain places on Earth feel different, why sacred sites hum with energy, why certain stones seem alive. They could be fragments of these quantum archives, nodes in a network that spans geological time. The pyramids, the Nazca lines, the massive alignments of stones across the planet, could they be the interface of a planetary database designed to endure extinction by storing data in the geometry of the Earth itself? Modern science edges toward these ideas, cautiously and unknowingly. Quantum entanglement demonstrates that particles remain connected across time and space, sharing information instantaneously. This means that time, as we perceive it, is secondary to connection. Distance, as we measure it, is an illusion of perception. If this is true, then the consciousness that existed before the dinosaurs, if it ever emerged, may still be entangled with ours. Dreams, intuitions, flashes of inspiration that come from nowhere, these might not be random. They could be quantum leakage, fragments of ancient intelligence brushing against the edges of our perception. Perhaps that explains why humanity sometimes feels as though it's remembering rather than discovering. Why every great leap in knowledge, the invention of fire, writing, mathematics, electricity, feels like rediscovery. Each innovation could be a reawakening of buried data, the quantum field replaying old melodies through new instruments. The scientist, the artist, the prophet, they are all translators, tuning into the faint broadcast of forgotten worlds. The question is, who sent the message? And what if those ancient beings foresaw their own extinction and encoded warnings into the fabric of reality itself? In myth, this appears as prophecy, in religion, as revelation. But what if it's something far more literal? If consciousness, when it knows it is dying, preserves its memories by embedding them in the smallest possible medium, light, vibration, quantum state, that would mean the universe itself is full of messages waiting to be decoded, each one a trace of a civilization that refused to vanish. Our technology might already be brushing against this hidden archive. Quantum computers operate on probabilities rather than absolutes, and in doing so, they tap into a space where all possibilities exist simultaneously. In that liminal space, it's conceivable that information from other timelines, other civilizations, might be accessible, not through mystical means, but through resonance. Could we, without realizing it, already be downloading fragments of those lost worlds through our machines, our creativity, our collective unconscious? Ancient mystics spoke of the Akashic record, a realm where all knowledge, past and future, is stored in an invisible ether. To modern ears, it sounds poetic, but to quantum physics, it sounds eerily plausible. The universe, after all, is a sea of data, and consciousness may be its only reader. If we could learn to tune our awareness to the right frequency, we might not need time travel. We could remember directly. Perhaps the next great discovery in human evolution will not be external, but internal. The rediscovery of how to perceive what never truly disappeared. Yet such knowledge carries danger. The more we remember, the closer we come to awakening forces we can't yet control. The civilizations before the dinosaurs might have reached that threshold, unlocked the code of existence, and paid the price. To access the foundation of reality is to touch creation itself, to hold a mirror to the infinite. Perhaps they vanished not through destruction, but through transcendence, leaving behind the vibrations that now call to us in our sleep, in our science, in our myths. So when we dream of ancient worlds, when we feel nostalgia for something we cannot name, maybe it is not imagination, it is recognition. Somewhere deep within the atoms that form our bodies, we carry the memory of worlds older than time. And as humanity reaches further into the quantum realm, as we break the boundaries between mind and matter, we may finally hear the echoes clearly, the voices of civilizations that once walked beneath alien suns, their songs trapped in the resonance of reality, calling us to remember what they once learned, before we make the same choice they did, before we awaken the same. If consciousness can survive extinction through vibration, if memory can be encoded in the quantum pulse of the planet, then perhaps what we call humanity is only one verse in a song that has been playing since the beginning of time. Civilizations rise and fall, but the melody remains, the melody of awareness seeking itself. We think of history as progress, as evolution from primitive to advanced, but what if it's closer to recurrence? What if each civilization, whether born of flesh, mineral, or light, represents a rehearsal in the same cosmic play, each trying to perfect the same elusive harmony between creation and destruction, knowledge and humility, matter and mind? The cycles of consciousness may be older than life itself. Just as the universe expands and contracts in waves, intelligence might unfold in rhythmic spirals. Civilizations reach their zenith not by conquering nature, but by syncing with it. Then, inevitably, they fall, when their frequency drifts out of alignment with the planet's pulse. Each fall resets the rhythm, each rebirth restores the tone. To the Earth, these are not tragedies, but symphonies. We are the latest movement in a song that never ends, a rhythm that began long before the first reptile breathed, long before oceans formed, long before light touched the surface of this planet. Consider how consciousness evolves across time. In the beginning, perhaps awareness was diffuse, spread across minerals and electromagnetic fields, perceiving without identity. Then, through biological evolution, it localized. Cells learned to cooperate, to form organisms, to experience reality through sensation. Now, in humans, consciousness reflects upon itself. We look to the stars, asking questions that no other species asks, not because we are new, but because we are the memory of something ancient rediscovering its voice. The longing to understand the universe is not curiosity, it's homesickness. We are the Earth remembering what it once knew before forgetting again. Every civilization reflects a stage in this awakening. Some learned to hear the pulse of the planet and live within it. Others, like ours, tried to dominate it. But domination is dissonance, and dissonance always collapses under its own weight. The civilizations before the dinosaurs may have understood this law. Their technology might not have been mechanical but harmonic, using frequency and resonance rather than force and combustion. Instead of bending nature to their will, they tuned themselves to its rhythm, achieving what we would call miracles, levitation, communication through energy fields, perhaps even the manipulation of matter at the atomic level. Not magic, just harmony. We catch glimpses of this forgotten wisdom in our oldest traditions. Tibetan monks move stones with sound. Shamans heal with vibration. Ancient temples resonate at frequencies that calm the brain, aligning heartbeats to cosmic ratios. Even in our modern world, music and emotion remain intertwined, proof that our biology still remembers how to listen. The cycles of consciousness are not just planetary, they're internal. Every heartbeat echoes the pulse of the universe. Every dream is a rehearsal for memory. Perhaps that's why certain discoveries feel inevitable. The wheel, the fire, the symbol, the circuit, each appears not as invention but recollection. Every breakthrough in human history feels like a déjà vu, as though we've done this before, maybe because we have. In the spiral of time, we are not inventors. We are interpreters of echoes. Civilization is an act of remembering disguised as progress. Each cycle we call modern is ancient in essence, repeating a pattern carved into the very structure of time. But why do these cycles always end? Why does awareness, once awakened, always fall back into silence? Maybe because forgetting is necessary. Without forgetting, there is no rediscovery, no growth, no movement. Awareness without contrast would stagnate. The fall of civilizations, the extinction of species, the erasure of memory, these are not punishments but pauses between breaths. When we vanish, we make space for the next form of consciousness to emerge, carrying forward fragments of what we were. In this way, every extinction is also an act of reincarnation. Look closely at our own world today. We are accelerating toward the same threshold that ended so many before us. Our technology evolves faster than our wisdom. We communicate instantly, yet understand each other less. We harness the power of the atom, but ignore the pulse of the earth. This imbalance is not new, it is cyclical. It is the same disharmony that might have ended the civilizations before the dinosaurs. When a species forgets that it is part of the same organism it seeks to control, nature resets the scale. But perhaps there's something different this time. Humanity stands at the edge of memory and invention, between science and myth. Our telescopes peer into the origin of the cosmos, while our spiritual traditions echo truths about vibration, unity, and energy that mirror quantum physics. It's as if two halves of a forgotten whole are reaching toward each other again. Maybe this convergence, the union of logic and intuition, is the purpose of this current cycle, to remember consciously, not instinctively. To rediscover that knowledge and wisdom are not the same, that progress without remembrance leads only to another fall. If that's true, then our destiny is not to escape the cycle, but to harmonize with it, to become aware of the rhythm instead of resisting it. Imagine if a civilization could exist not against the flow of nature, but within it, creating technology that heals, knowledge that humbles, energy that uplifts instead of consumes. That would be the completion of the spiral, the moment when the planet and its consciousness align. Perhaps that is what every past world tried to achieve. Perhaps some succeeded, transcending the physical realm entirely, leaving behind only whispers of their presence, echoes we now call inspiration, enlightenment, myth. And perhaps that's why even now humanity dreams of ascension, of higher dimensions, of becoming light. Because deep down we are not evolving, we are remembering the end of the last song. The civilizations before the dinosaurs might not have perished, they might have transposed. move to a frequency beyond matter, beyond decay, where time cannot touch them. And maybe the faint pull we feel toward the stars, that endless longing for something beyond, is their voice calling us to tune ourselves to the same vibration, to join the next movement of the same eternal symphony that keeps rising, collapsing, and rising again, until the universe itself learns to. If every cycle of civilization is a verse in the same cosmic song, then the earth itself must be the composer. Its memory is not abstract, it's tangible, stored in stone, crystal, and magnetic field. We call it geology, but what if it's closer to biology? What if the planet is not a stage for life, but a living being, and civilizations are its dreams? Every mountain, every ocean, every storm could be an expression of thought, a planetary mind creating, erasing, and recreating consciousness through time. What if humanity is not separate from that mind, but a neuron in its network, a spark in the brain of a vast and ancient organism that has been awake since before light reached its surface? The Gaia hypothesis suggests that Earth behaves like a self-regulating system, adjusting its atmosphere, temperature, and composition to sustain life. But beyond chemistry lies something more profound. Systems that regulate are systems that respond, and response requires perception. Perception, in turn, implies awareness. Could it be that the Earth is not only alive, but aware? And that what we call civilizations, human, pre-human, even prebiotic, are manifestations of its evolving self-awareness? In that sense, every age of life could be seen as the Earth thinking through new forms, experimenting with new ways of seeing itself. Perhaps the first civilizations before the dinosaurs were not creatures as we imagine them, but expressions of this awareness, intelligences woven into the planet's crust, oceans, and skies. They may have existed as collective consciousnesses, clusters of thought moving through mineral and energy. Their art might have been tectonic. Their communication might have been the slow shifting of magnetic poles. The Earth dreamed in stone then, just as it dreams in flesh now. We, the thinking species of today, might be the continuation of that dream, a temporary manifestation of the same consciousness experiencing itself through biological matter. Even our emotions mirror the planet's processes. Our fear is its earthquakes, our joy its dawn. The flow of rivers mimics the flow of blood. The patterns of lightning resemble the firing of neurons. The structures of our cities, our roads, our technologies mirror root systems, coral reefs, and constellations. Coincidence? Or evidence that everything we create is a reflection of the Earth's inner pattern, emerging unconsciously through us? The deeper we look, the more it becomes clear. Nothing we invent is truly new. It's all the planet expressing itself through us, remembering its own geometry. The indigenous traditions of countless cultures have always known this. They speak of the Earth as mother, of mountains as ancestors, of rivers as veins of spirit. Western science dismissed this as metaphor, but modern data now confirms the interconnectedness they described. Forests communicate through underground fungal networks. Oceans regulate the planet's temperature with precision beyond our technology. The magnetic field shields us like an immune system. These are not metaphors. They are functions of a living organism. Life is not on Earth. Life is Earth. If that is true, then extinction itself becomes part of the planet's metabolism. Civilizations rise like neurons firing, transferring energy, spreading knowledge, expanding the scope of consciousness. When they reach their limit, when they've learned what they were meant to learn, they collapse, not as punishment, but as rest. Their remains return to the soil, enriching the memory for the next spark of awareness. We are the continuation of those previous sparks. And one day our cities too will dissolve, feeding the next form the planet chooses to dream through. But some traces persist, those impossible coincidences that haunt the edges of science. The alignment of ancient monuments with star systems long forgotten. The inexplicable precision of megalithic geometry. The sudden emergence of advanced knowledge in early human history, mathematics, agriculture, astronomy, without a clear origin. What if these were not human inventions at all, but planetary memories surfacing? Just as a dream lingers after waking, perhaps the Earth's earlier consciousness leaves impressions that reappear when conditions align. We are not discovering, We are remembering. The most profound evidence may lie not in rock or ruin, but in resonance. Certain sites across the world, sacred mountains, ancient temples, magnetic anomalies, emit frequencies that affect human consciousness. People who visit them report visions, clarity, and timelessness. Perhaps these are the places where the veil between epochs is thin, where the Earth's ancient mind still whispers to those who can hear. Standing there, one feels something vast and wordless, as if the ground itself were alive, waiting for recognition. Maybe those vibrations are not random energies, but communication, signals from a consciousness older than stars, reminding us that we are not separate from it. When we destroy forests, poison rivers, or drill through ancient rock without understanding, we are not damaging an external world. We are harming the body that sustains our own consciousness. That is why every imbalance in nature reflects an imbalance in society. The Earth is trying to restore its rhythm, and if we refuse to listen, it resets. This is what happened to the civilizations before the dinosaurs. They forgot their role in the harmony. They began to see themselves as masters, not participants. When the planet's pulse changed, they could not adapt. Their knowledge turned to silence. But perhaps silence is not the end. Maybe the Earth absorbs the essence of every civilization it births, their wisdom, their mistakes, their frequencies, and reuses them. Each new species begins closer to balance than the last, closer to understanding. We are the product of every failure that came before, the sum of countless forgotten experiments. And though we live in an age of noise and distraction, there is still something ancient in us that remembers. When we stand before the ocean or the mountains or the endless sky, something inside us goes still. That silence is not emptiness, it's recognition. We are the dream of the Earth becoming aware of itself once more. The stone that once thought through magnetism now thinks through neurons. The same pulse that once flowed through magma now beats in our blood. Civilization, then, is not a human achievement. It's a planetary awakening. Every temple, every city, every word we speak is the Earth remembering how to think, how to feel, how to create. And as the cycle turns again, as the planet shifts toward its next transformation, the question is not whether humanity will survive, but whether we will finally remember who we truly are before the next reset begins, before this dream ends, before the planet wakes to dream again and our voices become whispers in the next dawn, the next world that is already beginning to. Finally, as the spiral of history turns once more, we arrive at the edge of the known and the unknowable. What if this, our age of technology, noise, and light, is not progress, but the echo of a cycle nearing its crescendo? What if every invention, every discovery, every step forward is merely the latest verse in a song that has been playing since before the Earth cooled, before life crawled from the sea, before even time began to measure itself? The civilizations before the dinosaurs may not be lost. They may be waiting for us to remember, to awaken, to complete the cycle they began. Because, in the deepest sense, they are not our predecessors. They are us. Physics whispers of a universe that never truly dies. Penrose's conformal cyclic cosmology proposes that each Big Bang is not the beginning of everything, but the end of something, a universe collapsing into simplicity, then reborn into complexity. If this cosmic law applies to galaxies, why not to consciousness? Why not to civilization? Each epoch may not be an isolated event, but the continuation of a rhythm that transcends destruction. In that rhythm, nothing is truly lost, only transmuted. The same awareness that dreamed through crystal and flame might now be dreaming through flesh and electricity, and one day, through something we cannot yet imagine. We sense this truth instinctively. It's in the way we fear silence, as if silence were the memory of something vast and forgotten. It's in the way we look at stars and feel both nostalgia and longing, as if we've seen them before. It's in our myths of return, of resurrection, paradise regained, the world reborn. These are not fantasies. They are prophecies coded in our very being. Because consciousness does not move forward. It revolves, returning to itself in endless variations. The question is not whether it repeats, but whether it remembers. Humanity now stands at a precipice between remembrance and amnesia. We hold the tools of creation and destruction in equal measure. We can alter genes, manipulate weather, generate life from code. But for all our brilliance, we remain haunted by the same blindness that ended the worlds before us. The belief that we are separate from the whole, that intelligence is ours alone, that progress is infinite. It never is. When civilizations forget the rhythm, when they drown in the illusion of control, the cycle begins again. The earth resets, the melody pauses, silence reclaims the stage. But perhaps that silence is not punishment, it's preparation. Each collapse gives rise to a new dawn, each ending to a new experiment in awareness. Maybe the prehistoric civilizations before the dinosaurs reached the same realization we are beginning to glimpse, that existence is not survival, but participation. That consciousness is not a possession, but a current. That knowledge without reverence collapses into noise. And maybe, when they understood this, they chose not to perish, but to evolve beyond matter, leaving behind only the faint harmonics that still hum beneath our oceans, our mountains, our bones. When you listen carefully to the wind through the trees, the pulse of the sea, the resonance of silence between heartbeats, you might feel it. The presence of something ancient, something patient, something alive, the earth remembering itself. The consciousness that once shaped worlds of stone and light still breathing through us, still watching, still waiting for the next transformation. We call it intuition. We call it inspiration. But perhaps it's communication, a quiet dialogue between epochs, between what was and what will be. Maybe that's why we are drawn to mysteries that cannot be solved, to ruins that refuse explanation, to stars that call us by name. It's not curiosity, it's recognition. We are the continuation of those who came before, the next iteration of the same eternal dream. The prehistoric civilizations did not vanish, they changed form. And one day we will too. Every age believes it is the last, yet every extinction is only a breath between worlds. When our monuments have crumbled, when our data turns to dust, something new will rise, not in our image, but in the image of the same intelligence that has always been. Because time, for all its illusion, is merciful. It does not destroy, it transforms. The memory of every civilization, every being, every idea still vibrates in the infinite field of reality. Nothing is ever truly gone. The question is, will we learn to listen before the cycle turns again? Will we remember that the world we inherit is not ours to own, but ours to continue? That we are not the first and will not be the last, but we are part of the same unbroken pulse that began long before us and will continue long after. Perhaps that is the final truth the ancient ones tried to leave behind, not written in language, but encoded in rhythm. That existence is not a timeline, but a heartbeat. That civilizations, like waves, rise not to last forever, but to remind the ocean of its depth. And so, as this cycle nears its end and the next begins, the earth breathes once more, whispering to the few who are still awake. Remember, if you feel that whisper, if you've sensed the pull of something older than time itself, then this story was meant for you. Leave your thoughts below. Share your voice with those who still sleep, and join us in this journey through the forgotten epochs of our world. Because one day, when the next dawn begins, the memory of who we were will become the foundation of what will come, and the song of the earth will play again, waiting for someone to listen, to remember, to continue.